Joining me right now in a Fox Business exclusive is Treasury Secretary Steven Mnuchin. Mr. Secretary, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thanks for being here.
Thank you, Maria. It's always great to be with you as well.
So you were expecting China to do this, obviously. This was part of the trade deal.
That's correct. This is part of China implementing phase one, which is our big focus at this point. And this is one of the moves that's a big step in the right direction.
So how worried are you about the threat of coronavirus, Secretary? I mean, you know, we know that this is basically shutting things down in China. You've got no flights in and out. You've got a number of American companies shutting their operations. And already we heard from a handful of companies that say, look, I need certain components that are going to be held up, like Qualcomm, among others. I was talking to a hospital executive the other day who said they're not getting the medical devices components that they need coming from China. Is this going to impact the U.S. economy down the road?
Maria, I think we're taking a very careful approach to the virus. First, let me just say we appreciate the way that China is working with us and other countries. And I appreciate all the resources that the U.S. is dedicated to this. I think we'll have a much better idea in another week or two as we monitor how the virus spreads. So I think on the one hand, we want to be very careful and considerate. It's too early to tell. I think looking at and modeling the economic impact, we have some pretty wide ranges. But I think after another 2 weeks, we'll have a much better way to model how this virus spreads.
Because at some point, if China if the first quarter is basically taken out of China, that does impact the rest of the world, correct? Because it's a much bigger portion of the global economy today than it was just 5 years ago.
Maria, I would say it could impact the rest of the world. So at this point, we haven't seen big issues in regards to supply chains. But again, this is something we're monitoring very carefully. And as I said, as we have a better idea how the virus spreads, based upon the current statistics, it's something we're monitoring very carefully.
Secretary, we had very strong job numbers again yesterday from the ADT report. We're getting the Labor Department's numbers tomorrow. What's your sense of the job situation today and whether or not we're going to be able to keep up this very strong hiring that we're seeing, where wages are actually higher, even highest on the bottom end of the income scale?
Maria, there's no question that the president's economic plan is clearly working in the U.S. It's a result of tax cuts, regulatory relief, and trade deals that we're seeing a strong U.S. economy. And we're seeing the numbers that we really want, which is very strong job growth and also wage growth. And I would just comment that GDP is slightly under our projections as a result of some particular one-time things. Boeing's had a big impact on this, the GM strike and others. But the president has been very focused on delivering for working people, and we see it in the numbers.
So is it fair to say that you expect that to continue throughout 2020?
Absolutely, 2020 and definitely into 2021 as well, as the president continues his economic agenda.
Are you still looking at a 3% economic growth number for 2020?
I think our projections have been reduced because of Boeing and other impacts, so it will be lower. I think we would have hit 3%, but again, Boeing has had a big impact on our exports, being the largest exporter. I think that could be 50 basis points or not more. There's no question that the virus will have some impact on global growth and some impact on the U.S. But again, we're very focused on the president is delivering jobs and delivering wage growth.
Yeah, I want to ask you what's on tap in terms of policy this year and beyond. But let me turn to this impeachment debacle now behind the president. President Trump acquitted on the 2 articles of impeachment yesterday. What's next on the Trump agenda? And do you think you can get things done legislatively, even though you know the other side is not done yet? Pelosi and company saying that they still want to bring your former colleagues down for testimony.
Well, we're very pleased that the Senate will be back at work doing what they should be doing, working for the American people. I would say we continue to try to pass through legislation. The good news is, you know, we got USMCA done. We are working on infrastructure. That's something that's been on the president's agenda from day one. We're also looking at housing reform. And on a smaller issue, but very important to the Treasury, we're working on legislation to move the Secret Service back to the Treasury Department, which we think will very very much help us in combating money laundering and terrorist activities.
That's interesting. What does that entail, moving the Secret Service back to Treasury?
Well, the good news is we have bipartisan support in the Senate. They'll be introducing this legislation. I think you know the Secret Service was started at the Treasury Department to prevent counterfeiting. It was at the Treasury up until 9/11, and we have big support from both this president and previous presidents, as well as the directors of the Secret Service, to move it back because it has tremendous synergies with the Treasury Department.
Secretary, a moment ago, you said that you have some confidence that you could work on infrastructure, and I know that you've had talks with House Ways and Means Committee Chairman Richard Neal. You do think you can get an infrastructure plan together and perhaps talked about and a legislative agenda on that this year?
Well, the president wants to do infrastructure. Whether we can get it done this year or whether it's going to have to wait until after the election, I'm not going to speculate on. Maria, as you know, the president's been trying to do this for the last few years, and the Democrats haven't moved forward with us. So we'll see. But if we don't get it done this year, it'll be top of the list right after the election.
The president, when I spoke with him in Davos, said that he's also considering another tax cut plan. And this is bringing up worries about the debt and deficits. I got to ask you about this. You've got $1 trillion infrastructure plan that you're talking about. Some people say it's even much more than infrastructure, as you speak with House Ways and Means Committee Chairman. And then a tax cut plan. The president told me he'd like to not only make these cuts permanent for individuals, but also cut taxes further for the middle class. When does the debt and deficit become an issue for you? I understand that rates are at rock bottom lows, but you know $22 trillion in debt, $1 trillion deficits every year has people worrying about breaking the bank, sir.
Well, Maria, those are very reasonable questions. And what I would say is the deficit right now as a percentage of GDP is manageable, but we need to work down the deficit over time. Under the president's budget proposal, we reduced that significantly over the next 10 years. And what we really need to do, Maria, it's pretty simple. We just need to grow the economy faster than we grow government spending, and that will reduce the deficit. And as you know, the president, when he took office, wanted to increase military spending. His initial proposal was to offset that with non-military cuts. We couldn't get the Democrats to agree to that. So a big part of the deficit right now is not the tax cuts. The big part of it is increased government spending. And as I've always said, the tax cuts, I think, will pay for themselves, but that was always back-ended. In the front part, it was growing the economy.
Yeah, let me go back to trade for a moment, because also in Davos, the president told me that he is expecting Europe to buy more agricultural products from the United States in order to get a trade deal done. How deep in conversations are you with the EU right now? I want to ask you about the UK, but first the EU. And are they going to buy what the president would like them to buy in terms of agricultural products, or are you actually going to put tariffs on more European products coming into the country?
Well, the president is very focused on getting an agreement with the EU. Ambassador Lighthizer and others are now working on that. It is a priority for us. Agriculture is one of the issues, but let me just highlight there are many other important issues. And I think, as you know, as a result of the president's economic and trade policies, we've already seen a tremendous amount of investment by the European automakers into the U.S. in building factories here. So that's also part of the agenda, and that is working.
Is Europe next in terms of another trade deal, or is it the U.K.? I mean, British trade officials looking for reductions in tariffs as well from a trade deal with the United States, part of the plan negotiating deals with several other countries after its exit from the European Union. So what's next? Is it the U.K.? Is it the EU, or something else like India?
Well, Maria, I think you know the president is keeping all of us very busy, particularly Ambassador Lighthizer, who's leading this. And simultaneously, he is working on with us deals with the UK, Europe, and India. I'm not going to speculate which is going to come first. We're working on all of them simultaneously, and the president wants us to get all of them done.
And Secretary, on China, Chinese just lowered tariffs. Would you be willing to cut tariffs on Chinese goods?
The president is willing to cut tariffs, but that's part of phase 2 agreements, not part of phase 1. One of the reasons we left on a series of tariffs was to incentivize them for phase 2. And the president has said if we get everything we want in phase 2, we'll cut all those tariffs. But again, we may do this as 2A, 2B, 2C and drop tariffs along the way. But our big focus right now is implementing phase 1, which was a historic agreement that the president led.
When would you expect phase 2 talks?
The president's been very clear and that we'll proceed with phase 2, but he wants to get the right deal. And if that happens right away, that's terrific. If it happens after the election, that's fine as well.
But of course, now you've got a whole other element in this, right, with the coronavirus. I mean, you have gotten the Chinese to agree to buy $200 billion in products, whether it's agricultural products, oil and gas, et cetera, in the next 2 years. Do you worry that they're not going to be able to carry that forward, you know, keep their end of the bargain because of the coronavirus?
Based on our current projections of the virus, we're not worried about that. But let me again say we're monitoring the virus carefully. We'll have a much better idea over the next 2 weeks. I think we're going to get more comfortable. But based on current information, I don't expect there will be any issues in them fulfilling their commitments.
All right, we will leave it there. Secretary, it's always a pleasure to see you. Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Maria.
Good to see you.